Applying to musical theater programs can feel like a never-ending roller coaster. It's completely overwhelming, so it's not uncommon that some essential parts of the process get overlooked. Today, we're shining a light on 7 things families and students overlook during the musical theater college audition process.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Cortman-Westphal, a Broadway music director, conductor, voice coach, and tenured professor in the musical theater department at the University of Michigan.
And I'm Chelsea Wilson, a performer turned voice teacher to Broadway stars and vocal coach on Broadway productions like The Phantom of the Opera, School of Rock, and more.
Here on the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, you can expect real talk about the business, practical advice, and constant encouragement.
We believe there's space for every artist in this industry. All you need is the right support, so consider us your 2-woman hype team. Welcome to the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, where we help musical theater performers get unstuck and take the next step in their careers. Today, we are welcomed by our friend, our very special guest, and our head BVC Aspire coach, Julie Kavanagh. Hi, Julie.
Hello, Chelsea. Hi, Cynthia. I'm so excited to be here.
So wonderful. We're so thrilled to have you with us today. I want to take a moment to introduce Julie. Like I said, Julie is our head Aspire coach overseeing the BVC Aspire program this year for our rising high school seniors going through the college audition process. And she's just a wealth of information. I'm excited for all of you guys to get to know her today. So originally from St. Louis, Missouri, Julie is a graduate of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music's musical theater program, class of 2011. As a performer, she has toured with the Broadway First National Tours of Hello, Dolly and La Cage aux Folles, and has performed at major regional theaters all over the country. As an educator, Julie has worked for the past 7 years at Broadway Method Academy in Fairfield, Connecticut. She's also the program manager for the Stephen Sondheim Awards, the Connecticut and Massachusetts High School Musical Theater Awards, which is part of the National High School Musical Theater Awards, which you might recognize as the Jimmy Awards. Julie continues to perform professionally and work with performers all across the country. Julie resides in New York City with her fiance and soon-to-be husband. She is getting married this year. We're so thrilled for you, Julie.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Oh, great things coming down the line. So, fun fact, I've got to interject this because Julie and I first met over a decade ago. Julie was a year ahead of me in school at a different program, and we moved to the city, around the same time, me a year after Julie, and we met in the New York City Ladies Book Club that we were a part of, that we with several of our friends. And that's how I met Julie, was through our book club, where, to be honest, we ate food and drink more than we talked about books. But, sometimes that's the purpose of a good book club.
Mm-hmm. I was just about to say that I definitely think there was a lot more just hanging out. It was our excuse to all get together versus
Absolutely right.
book club. But that's great.
Yeah. It was so great to meet you then and see you over the past decade, how your life and your performance career and your career as an educator has evolved. And now it just feels like this lovely full circle moment that we get to work together here at Broadway Vocal Coach and have you on the podcast today. So again, welcome.
Thank you. So excited.
Let's get into it today. So like I mentioned in the introduction, we are talking about 7 things that families overlook during the college musical theater audition process. There's a lot to keep track of. There is a lot to wrap your head around as you go through this process. And we don't want these important things to get overlooked as you're going through the process. So let's dive into them, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Amazing. The first point that we have on our list here is using your time and finances wisely in the preparation and application process. This could be interpreted a million different ways, but Julie, what are we talking about when we talk about using your time and finances wisely?
Yes. So Chelsea, what we're talking about is looking and paying close attention to those due dates. That's a really key part of using your time wisely, and also using your time wisely leading up to those due dates, which is why the Aspire program is so key and so important, because we really focus on what the most important, that like good hotspot for time is, which is the summer before your senior year, and really utilizing that time that you have at the end of May, early June. You are finishing your junior year of high school. You have that time over the summer. So when you get to the fall, you are already set and ready to go. And by the end of September, when Aspire ends, you are done with your pre-screens. You are ready to move forward. You are able to enjoy your senior year. You are able to take that big weight off of your shoulders. So paying attention to those due dates, paying attention to the time frame, and really utilizing the time when you have a break well is so important. It can be so easy that senior year to kind of push off all of these elements and wait till you get close to that September mark. But getting started in that June moment is really going to be so key to save yourself time. Again, really use your time wisely, and also bring, a big weight off your shoulders. So the second part of that is using your finances wisely. The application and audition process for musical theater is not an inexpensive process to go through. And then college is not an inexpensive thing to look at on the horizon. So the more that you can use your finances wisely is going to really pay off in the end. Focusing that money on training and prep, for example, instead of putting the money towards a fancy studio rental to pay for all of your pre-screens, to get videoed on fancy equipment and go to a fancy studio with fancy recording equipment, etc. So really being smart about where you put your finances, spending that money on the prep work and the training over those summer months as well. They kind of go hand in hand. So then you can set yourself up for success when you get into the fall. Another element with really being smart about how you're using your finances going into an expensive process is looking at what you're going to do over the summer. Are you going to need to visit all of those universities and colleges, or do you hold off on all of those trips and maybe save up that money so you can get prepped for all of those pre-screens and then save those trips for later on down the line when you're accepted to schools, etc. So there's a lot of ways for you to be smart with those finances. To use your time and money wisely is really going to set you up for success throughout this whole process.
I totally agree with you, Julie. I think the point of this is for families to understand what's going to help you really move the needle forward. There are a lot of things that you could spend your time and your finances on, and a lot of them look flashy and fun and fancy. Like Julie, you were saying, an expensive studio rental with professional lighting set up to film your pre-screens. But at the end of the day, it makes absolutely no difference in the result that you're going to get. That money, that time is so much better spent in the training, in the coaching, in the preparation process. That's what's going to move the needle forward in your application process. So I love that you brought that up, Julie.
I would also add, I just want to reaffirm something Julie said that I thought was so important. And it's something that our fabulous intern, Emily, has mentioned previously, which is that when you get into the auditions, a lot of folks will feel like they have to go to each school to do their auditions, or they make those extra trips ahead of time to check out these schools, which is great. If you have the means to do that, that's great. But it is so expensive to deal with all of that travel and the housing while you're there and taking time off work to do that. So Emily's strategy, which I think was so great, is to make really educated decisions about what schools you're going to apply to. Do the research as much as you can. There's now great videos that you can find online that are virtual tours of the campus and of the actual school buildings that you're going to be in and of classrooms. So you can see a lot of that kind of thing online. Do your applications. Then once you get your acceptances, then you can maybe take those trips, because then it matters. Then it really matters what sort of the vibe of the school is and the environment of the school is. But one thing Emily had mentioned was that it also helped her not kind of fall in love with the place and get super invested in a place that she might not end up getting accepted into anyway. So it kind of served two purposes, I thought. It helped save some money, and it also just kept a little bit of a level of detachment while you're going through this very potentially stressful process, to not get too attached to places too soon and kind of wait and see how everything's going to pan out. I think that's really good advice.
Yes, in the end, one more thing with that as well is that this is a long process. If you're starting your prep work in June and then you're going all the way through auditions, through January, February, acceptances in March. This is almost a full year-long process. And Emily, put it so wonderfully, and you put it so wonderfully just now. And looking at not going to all those schools for all those auditions, it will also help with the fatigue of the process. Students who are then traveling every single weekend that they have free their senior year of high school, that's hard. That's hard. It's exhausting. It's going to take a lot out of you. And so really, that's another great way to also help with the audition fatigue that you can
Yeah.
get when every Friday morning you're getting up to go on a plane to travel somewhere new.
Yeah. And just to say that it's okay. If you are able and you want to get to all those different schools, great. But if it's a financial struggle or difficult to get that time off school or difficult for a parent or a guardian to travel with you, that's okay too. There are lots of other ways that you can audition for these programs that are more economical, both financially and in terms of time.
The second item that we have on our list today of things that families generally overlook in the college audition process is the reality of the numbers game when it comes to applying. Perhaps people don't overlook this, but perhaps they overlook the way in which this is going to impact your schools list or your audition process. So, Cynthia, talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the numbers game and how difficult it is these days to get into some of these programs.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a great way to put it. It's a numbers game. It is not a reflection of your talent game. It's not about whether you are talented. It's not about whether you have skills. It's not about whether you have a place in this business or a future in the world of musical theater. It really is a numbers game. There are only certain number of slots in each program, and some of them are more competitive than others. So at the end of the day, even if there's 50 really talented people, if a school can only take 20, that means 30 people didn't get in that. It doesn't mean they weren't deserving. It doesn't mean they weren't worthy. It doesn't mean they weren't talented. It doesn't mean they'll never work in musical theater. It just means that there were only a certain number of slots. But I think of it more as sorting. We're going to have a bunch of incredible musical theater students who are applying for various musical theater programs. And we take this time to sort them into the right fit, both the schools to find the right fit and the student to find the right fit. And I think if you can think of it that way, it can hopefully allow you to spread your net maybe a little wider than you think, which we're going to get to this in a later point. But there are so many good schools out there, more than what you might think. So many good faculty members at good schools, like great teachers that you can go study with. So if you can think of it more as finding a good fit versus necessarily having to get in one of those so-called top schools that only have 20 slots in it, and it's just going to be a really difficult numbers game. If 1,500 people apply for 20 slots, no matter what your skill level, no matter if you've already done 10 Broadway shows in your childhood already, it's just still really a difficult odds. So in that sense, if you can think really carefully about some additional schools, what we call safety schools, just diversifying that schools list, I think is really, really important.
Being honest with yourself, with your parents, with your child, regarding the realities of this process is crucial. And I think that's a really great heads up. The third point we have on our list today is following the instructions for each school regarding your material, the cut length, the era of pieces,
Yes.
etc., etc. We're giggling because this is truly one of the most overlooked points of this process, and it is important. It is really important. Julie, talk to us a little bit about what is required, how this varies from school to school, and what folks need to keep in mind in order to do this successfully.
Absolutely. There are a lot of requirements going through this process, starting with your pre-screens. And I'm going to do a little shout out. Hooray for the common pre-screen. It is a common pre-screen that a lot of programs utilize, where you can use the same material and it has these same requirements, where you can utilize that same material for multiple different schools. Now, that being said, not every school utilizes this. Lots of schools have different requirements. They're going to have different requirements for their songs that are needed. You're going to likely need to have 2 songs. One of those is going to be your classical traditional piece pre-1970, and then your contemporary piece. And yes, you have to pay attention to all of these details and all of these dates. It's so important. So you're going to have different requirements for your songs, different cut lengths for different schools, different lengths of measures, different time frames, including your slate at the front end of that. And then you're going to get into your monologues, and you're going to have your differing requirements for your monologues, likely 2 to 3 monologues, your contemporary piece, classical piece, a contemporary potentially contrasting piece, and then some schools will have specifics within those categories. And that's just for songs and monologues. And then you get into dance. Then you get into the dance element, and some schools are going to require a dance pre-screen. Some schools will also require a ballet option, which has specific requirements within each of those elements. And then there are the additional ones, which we're going to talk about a little bit later as well. But there are lots of details that go into this process and lots of instructions, which is why it is really amazing to have a team behind you who is going to help you work. This is one of my mantras that I live and breathe by in this process, is working smarter and not harder, especially when there are so many boxes you are going to have to check. When I'm working with a student, I look at every single detail and all of those boxes, and I go, how are we going to work smart throughout this process so we make sure we fulfill everything that we can without scrambling to learn new things every single week or weekend throughout this really long process. But there is a lot to keep track of, a lot of details, and those details are very important because it also will showcase to the schools that you are reading and that you are paying attention to what they are asking for of you, which is super important to make sure you're on top of.
I think that actually is the most important component right there. It's not that 16 versus 18 bars is going to showcase your talent or your skill any differently. It's just a matter of, can this person follow the instructions? We've asked them to prepare X, Y, and Z. Can they prepare X, Y, and Z? It speaks to your level of preparation. It speaks to your attention to detail. And as actors and as performers who aspire to be professionals in this industry, that's what's required. That is what's required, is an attention to detail and an ability to follow instructions.
Students kind of butt up against this a lot in my experience, these tiny little details. And I think of it as like if you ordered a drink at Starbucks and you asked for oat milk instead of 2%, or you wanted caramel flavoring instead of hazelnut, and they got everything right except the hazelnut. It's like, I really wanted the hazelnut. I promise you that with all of these schools, there's many different reasons why we come up with these various requirements. So they seem silly, but they're important. And it's a great opportunity to just show that you care about the details and respect what they're asking for. And I just think it's a great opportunity, actually.
It's so easy to put that part in your control. And this is a process where once you send your pre-screens off into, the cloud towards all of the schools, and once you step foot out of that audition room, the next piece of the puzzle is out of your control. And this part of the process is in your control. And as long as you just read through those details and really take them to heart, you can put a piece in your control in a process that there's a lot that won't be in your control, which is also something that is super, super important to do.
That's a great point, Julie. I appreciate that. If you've been shopping around for musical theater college audition prep programs for your child and are looking for something a bit more white glove and full service, then I think we've got what you're looking for. There are 2 things that make our college prep program, BVC Aspire, different than many of the other college prep programs you can choose from. Number 1 is our timeline. We stand by our 4-month timeline for a number of reasons. You might be led to believe that you need to start choosing and rehearsing audition material in the fall or spring of your junior year. Not so. There is a sweet spot for audition prep, and that is the summer before senior year. Our 4-month timeline means you've got time to rehearse without running the risk that your material becomes stale. We lead all of our Aspire students to submit their completed applications and pre-screens by the end of September, so they're in the first crop of applicants that schools see while things are still fresh. Plus, by getting things done early, you can actually enjoy your senior year, spend time with family, get a part-time job, be in your school show, without having all of this stuff hanging over your head. The second thing that makes Aspire different from other college prep programs is everything is included. Many other programs are a la carte, meaning that you're paying for everything separately over the course of a long and potentially drawn-out process. With Aspire, we've put everything in one place and for one price to address families' needs in an efficient yet thorough program. No more cobbling together all the help you need. We've taken the guesswork out of the process and assembled a team to see you through to the end. Ready to get stressing over college audition prep off your plate? Schedule a free consult with us. Email us at hello@bwayvocalcoach.com or check the link in our show notes to book a call. We'll talk to you soon. Our fourth point here of things that families and students overlook is they overlook to have conversations about the cost and how they're going to finance schools. Oftentimes, families overlook having the money talk. And I get it. This is overwhelming. A lot of families don't talk about money ever. A lot of families don't have a culture of speaking about money, finances, what the realities of things like that are. And a lot of young people are in the dark as to, what their family may or may not be able to help them in terms of financing for school. And sometimes students don't have a lot of family help in that regard. That's why it's so crucial to have the money talk, broach this conversation, because the last thing that you want is to get into your dream school and then have no way to pay for it. Get into your dream school and then to have not gotten the financial aid that was necessary in order to go. And so having this conversation from the beginning, talking with your parents or talking with your child about what's feasible, what's reasonable, what the expectations are. Some students may expect that their parents will pay for college, and parents might not be in a position to do that or choose to do that. Vice versa. Some parents may expect that their child is going to have a part-time plus job to pay for college all through college. And a student might not be in the position given their major or given their time constraints to be able to do that. So talking about this from every angle is crucial so that both parties, students and families, don't get their hearts broken at the end of this process. What do you guys think about that?
To be honest, I think that's exactly right. Just have the hard conversation. It can be a hard conversation. It can be a disappointing conversation. But at the end of the day, it's going to help you so much if you know what's possible. And then that's where you can focus your time and energy, because that's really the point. It's like identify what is in your reach financially so that then you can, and I promise you there's going to be a lot of schools in all different categories, but then you can start researching those schools and you can really put your time and energy towards the schools that you know are affordable for you. And I just think that's really, really important.
You both put that so well. I don't think I have anything else to add that would make that more impactful than it already is.
The other thing I'd add to that is the earlier the better for this conversation. And I mean, you're a freshman, you're a sophomore, the beginning of your junior year of high school, no matter what you're going to pursue in college, right? This is a conversation that families across America, across majors, across disciplines are having and need to be having more of, is the conversation about how to pay for college and what's reasonable for families. So if students can get clear on what that's going to look like for them, you've got more time to pick up a job in the summer or to get really good at playing the oboe and apply for that really weird oboe scholarship that only happens in your county in West Virginia. I don't know. There's so many creative ways that you can pursue outside scholarship opportunities. And the earlier this is on your radar, the more choices you're going to have when it comes time to make a decision about where you're going to go to school. Okay, let's move on to our next point. Our fifth point here that families and students often overlook is the essay and the wild card. I love talking about this because they are opportunities to show something else, not more of the same. Cynthia, I know you're really passionate about this. What do you see students overlook when it gets to this part of their application process?
Yeah, I think you just said it. The part that gets overlooked is that it's an opportunity, not just another requirement you got to check off. And the opportunity is, what is one more thing you can tell us about yourself or show us about yourself or highlight about yourself that we can't tell from your resume, from your general college application that just gives us a bunch of facts about you. and that we can't tell from your monologue or your songs. So I guarantee you there's something that we do not know from your resume and from your songs and monologues. Whether it's that you learned how to cook from your grandmother, whether it's that, as one of our students had, I love to use this as an example, gets up at 5 a.m. to get on the tractor to work his family's farm before he goes to school every day. What a cool fact about someone that you would never know from any other location. So it's a way to show us so much more than I love musical theater and I'm talented at musical theater. It's that what else? What else about you is unique and special and different? Just tell us more. It's the more factor that I feel like gets overlooked. And what I see the most in essays, sort of general things about playing the lead for the first time in my school show, or the first time I was ever cast, or the first show I ever saw. And those are great topics, but is there something unique about yourself that you can put in there too? Or is there maybe even a slightly different topic that could tell us more about you, something just more interesting? It's also a great opportunity if you want to share anything about your identity, about your heritage, about your background, just again, things that we can't find out just by looking at a resume, a piece of paper with a list on it. So I love the essay and the wild card. I just think it's an amazing opportunity for everyone.
Cynthia, you always, when you talk about this, you put it so wonderfully and it makes me so excited. And it's so weird. I don't think I would have ever said this, but when I went through this process, we did not have pre-screens and there were no such thing as wild cards. But it makes me think of, oh my gosh, how cool would it be to be able to show all of these people the other parts of my life that I love and that are so exciting? Because also at the end of the day, we're more than just our singing and our dancing and our acting. There are so many elements outside of just the performing aspect of what we do. And being able to highlight that is so cool and so special. And it's so exciting to look at these additional elements that you have to do and have to put together as an exciting opportunity, as opposed to one more thing on that checklist that you have to complete.
Yep, exactly. Yep, I love that.
Our sixth item on our list today of things that families often overlook in the college audition process is it pertains to your schools list, which we've touched on a little bit already. But the thing that folks often overlook is considering the experience of faculty members, especially when it comes to lesser known schools or lesser known programs who may have fantastic faculty members with incredible experience, incredible teaching backgrounds, incredible philosophies that you might really align with. Cynthia, tell me a little bit about how you think this can make a difference in someone's schools list if they're considering this factor.
So often we see lists of schools, right? Like these are the top 10, quote unquote, top 10 schools. And of course, there's criteria for that and there's reasons for that. But there might be a school that isn't on your radar. Maybe it's a smaller school, maybe it's a brand new program. If you do a little bit more of a deep dive into who the faculty members are, you might find, I'm telling you, a lot of my friends I used to work on Broadway with, they're all teaching now. And not all of them are at major top 10. I keep wanting to say that in quotes because they might not be at one of these quote unquote top 10 schools. However, I know these folks. They are amazing. You would be so lucky to study with them. So looking at those faculty bios, you might find some real gems in an unusual place that you hadn't thought of, at a school that maybe wasn't on your radar. But that as we do a little bit of a deep dive, I think to myself, oh my gosh, if you have an opportunity to study with that person, take it. That's great. So it's just another way to expand your possibilities of these schools because of that numbers game that we were talking about earlier.
There is so much more than that, quote unquote, again, that top 10 list, doing that deep dive into the school and into the faculty. And those are the people you're going to be training with for your 4 years at school. And there are some unbelievable programs across the country that might be smaller and might be not as known. But oh my gosh, like you were saying, the opportunities to train with some of these people is so cool. And just to kind of open up your mind a bit and to be a little bit of a sponge to all of the options that are around you instead of being so stuck on this one idea of these are the places that I have to go to school, to be able to pursue this field when that's not the case. And there are so many unbelievable programs around the country with great faculty, great performance opportunities in great towns and cities that you can really broaden your horizons, and just really being open to that and doing that research. It's really illuminating, and you'll find that there are some really wonderful opportunities and places that you can go.
I agree. Our last point, my friends, our seventh thing that families overlook, and I saved the best for last, I think. Let's talk about the importance and the impact of kindness and gratitude throughout this entire process. I'm going to take a quick jump, though, to Julie. You've had a phenomenal professional performance career, and you've done national tours and worked regionally and all these cool things. From your perspective, over a decade into your performance career, and of course your experience as an educator, what impact does kindness and gratitude have in your performance career?
It is so important. It makes such a big impact. In my professional performing career, I have made so many wonderful connections, and I have to say, a lot of the times you work because there's a director or a choreographer who says, "Oh my gosh, I worked with so and so and they were awesome to have in the room with me." That's the person I want to create with. And it's so important to be that person, to be those people. And we're not talking about being fake and putting on a facade of who you are, but being kind and being gracious is so important. I see it as a performer. I see it as an educator. I see it as my work with the Sondheim Awards for who we send off to the Jimmy Awards in New York City. Kindness and attitude with those students that we work with is so important, because not only will it help with the trajectory of your, whatever your path is as a professional, but most importantly, as a human being, let's just all have kindness and grace with each other, because we're all going through this crazy journey of life at the same time. And let's do it with kindness and grace, because that's just going to make it all better as well. It's going to make any experience better. I feel so passionate about this. I think it's one of the most important elements, and it gets around people who are not kind, and it doesn't matter to who it is, to the monitor outside the audition room, to the way in which you have a communication with an assistant to an admissions officer. Everything that you do makes an impact, and it's so important to to approach with that kindness and grace. I could talk about it for days and days on end, so I'll stop now because I keep going in circles. But yeah,
well, I'll
absolutely.
keep going. I'm going to keep it going. Yes, I agree. This one is hugely important, I think. And I love that you said it's not about being false. It's not about being fake. But there's so many opportunities that you're going to have throughout this whole process, between interacting with administrators, faculty, your accompanists, fellow students who are auditioning along with you, students that you're going to interact with who are already in the program that you're going to have an opportunity to interact. There are just so many junctures at which you're going to have an opportunity to show kindness, to show some grace, to show some gratitude. And I would also add, show it to yourself. Please show it to yourself as well. There's going to be so many times throughout this process where you're going to think, "Oh, I should have done this instead," or, "Oh, that didn't go the way I thought it should." And showing a little kindness and grace to yourself is also going to go so far. And I'm going to add one more: gratitude to the folks who have helped get you where you are. So your parents, your siblings, your guardians, your grandparents, your teachers, your choir teacher, your theater teacher, all those folks. Just remember the support that has been given you along the way. And hopefully you've been given support. If you haven't been given the support that everyone deserves, then I hope that you will get it in the future, and you have an opportunity to be that support for people along the way. So it's what Julie said. If we can all have that circle of kindness and gratitude and grace sort of free flowing all the time, it just keeps coming around and it makes everything better.
I think that's a fantastic point to leave people with. This idea that what you put out will eventually come back to you. What you are giving to others, how you are showing up authentically in a kind and gracious and grateful way, that will come back to you, and perhaps in surprising ways. Thank you both for joining me today to have this conversation about these handful of things that families and students often overlook. I hope we've been able to shine a light on several of these topics. And if you're interested in learning more about the college musical theater process, we've got a lot of resources for students and families. You can check out the show notes in today's episode for several of those links to our free Getting Started guide, Getting Started with the Musical Theater College Audition Process guide. And if you're interested in getting a coaching team, people who are going to support you, pay attention to the details, help you stay on top of dates, and to be in a program where you're really going to get the most out of your resources, then I highly encourage you to look into BVC Aspire, our 4-month college prep program for rising high school seniors. Registration is open now. It's closing in May, and our program begins in June. It's coming up, my friends, and you will have the awesome opportunity to work with Julie, who you've met here today on today's episode, as well as myself and Cynthia. And we can't wait to cheer you on. We can't wait to join your team. We know every student really deserves the best support system, and we can't wait to be that for you. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. So excited to get started in June.
And thanks, Cynthia. Great to have you on as always.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and tag us on Instagram at BWay Vocal Coach. Share this episode with a friend, and please consider leaving us a review. It helps more listeners find our show. And if you're ready to take your next step but aren't entirely sure what that should be in your own career, take our quiz. We'll strategize with you to outline a roadmap to your unique goals. Plus, from there, you can book a free consult with us. Visit bwayvocalcoach.com/take the quiz. We can't wait to hear your story and help you take the next step in your career. Thanks for listening.